All right. Hey, good morning, everybody. It is Thursday morning, May the 10th. Uh, is it May the 10th? Is it? No, May the 9th, right? It's Thursday morning, May the 9th. Okay, sorry. Uh, Good, because I prepared for the 9th. Thursday morning, May the 9th, 2024. And we're looking at just one psalm today. I've got some supplementary passages that we're going to look at as well, but we're going to be just focused on Psalm 39 today. And the title of today's Daily Man is Muzzle My Angry Mouth. But the mouth that needs to be muzzled first is the mouth that's in my heart. Psalm 39, Psalm of David. David writes, I said, I will guard my ways. I'm going to watch my ways so that I will not sin with my tongue. And when he says sin here, it's the word that means to miss the mark, the word that means, to err. So I'm going to guard my ways so that I don't err or miss the mark with my tongue. I will muzzle my mouth while the wicked are before me, right? So they're before me, it uses this word, they're revealed to me, they're disclosed to me. I can see the wickedness in front of me. And what am I going to do in this moment? I want to guard my ways because I don't want to sin with my tongue. So I'm going to go quiet while the wicked are before me. He says, verse 3, so I became utterly speechless, or I was bound silent. I kept silent even from good, but my anguish was stirred up. Verse 4, my heart was hot within me, or in my innermost. While I was musing, the fire burned, and then I spoke with my tongue. So he's like, I'm not going to say anything. And he sees the wickedness. The wickedness is before him. But he becomes completely silent. But in his silence, as he's hushed, it becomes infuriating. There's anguish, there's pain, there's suffering within. It becomes worse. He becomes agitated. He's stirred up, and it becomes worse. And it says, my heart was burning or hot in my innermost being while the word for musing here means kind of imagine seeing it. While I'm going back and forth, I'm thinking about it, I'm seeing it in my head. While I'm doing that, the fire burned. He says, then I spoke with my tongue. So now he had said he's not going to sin with his tongue, but now he speaks. So what does he do? Well, when he speaks, he wisely takes his words to the Lord. He doesn't address the wicked one. He brings it to the Lord. Verse 5. He says, let me know, help me understand, Adonai, my end, and what the number of my days is. Let me know. And then here, the second let me know is it's a first-person cohortative sense, which means it has more to do with a person kind of talking to themselves and spurring themselves on. Like, I'm intent, I desire to know, I want to know how fleeting my life is or how short-lived I am, right? He doesn't want to know everything that's always going to happen. He wants to know, really, this is aimed at his purpose. What's the end of all of this? How fleeting my life is. He says, behold, you've made my days mere handbreadths, and my lifetime as nothing before you, or it's like in a comparison to you. Surely all humanity is but vapor, Selah. So in his life, he's like, let me know how long this is going to last. Let me know when my end is, because in his life, it may feel like a mile, but in reality, the Lord has made, compared to what life really, like compared to eternity, it's a brief span of time. Right? So even when it seems that a man is strong and self-assured, from God's perspective, he's little more than a breath, a vapor. So I want perspective. Give me perspective. Give me an eternal perspective. I'm bringing it to you because right now I'm seeing all this, and I'm seeing it, and I'm right in the moment. It's like you're a prisoner of the moment in that situation. It's like, help me know how quickly this is actually going to go by. Help me to realize this is but a breath. This is but a vapor. It's going to be gone. Verse 7, he says, Everyone goes about as a mere phantom. Surely they are making an uproar in vain, heaping up stuff, yet not knowing who will gather it. There's nothing new under the sun. If that doesn't sound like the same condition that we experience now, everyone's going about, everyone's walking and doing his thing, and they're in emptiness, making an uproar, heaping up stuff, just making loud noise to get whatever I can, yet not knowing who's going to gather it. Verse 8, now, my Lord, what am I waiting for? What do I expectantly wait for? What is my hope? He says, my hope is in you. Everyone's piling up stuff. That's not where my focus is. My hope is in you. Verse 9, deliver me, which deliver me here is not the word Yeshua. It's the word Natsal, which is to snatch me out, extricate me, pull me from this. Deliver me from all my transgressions. Wait a minute. I thought the focus was, look at the wicked. I'm keeping my mouth shut because of the wickedness that's in front of me. But he says, Lord, deliver me, extricate me from all of my transgressions, my rebellions, my own defiance. Deal with me. He says, don't make me the scorn of a fool. I am speechless, or I have become speechless. It's like when you're a little kid and I have become speechless, not opening my mouth, because you have done it. Right? So in his silence, he's deeply disturbed. He feared he might say something that's off base, that's sin. He's not going to say anything. And then he comes to the Lord, and he brings it to the Lord, and then he gets perspective. Lord, I don't need to. It doesn't require me. You're in charge. You're doing it. Verse 11, he says, remove your scourge from me. I perish. As for me, I perish. I'm brought to an end by the blow of your hand. With rebukes, you chasten one for iniquity. The word for rebukes with a correction. He says, you chasten, you admonish, you discipline one for his iniquity, for his twisting. And you consume like a moth what he finds pleasure in. Surely all humanity is but a vapor. Selah. Hear my prayer, Adonai, and listen to my cry. Do not keep silent at my tears. I'm going to keep silent at the wickedness in front of me, and I'm going to bring it to you. Will you hear what I'm saying? I'm bringing it to you, not taking it to them, bringing it to you. Will you hear my prayer? And then please don't be silent. You see my tears, you see my anguish. Please respond, Lord. Because with you, he says, I am an outsider, or I am a stranger. It has to do with someone who's there's a recognition of, like, I'm not yet who I need to be, like, as part of your kingdom. Like, you alone are God. There is none like you. You are in a category of one. And so I am beseeching you. I need you. Please respond to me. For with you I'm an outsider, a sojourner, as all my fathers were. Verse 14, he says, turn your gaze away from me. Literally what it says is like to make smooth, or to blind yourself from me so that I may smile again, because I'm intent on smiling again. Before I go, and I am no more. So here, the psalmist David is like, I'm going to muzzle. I'm seeing the wickedness before me. I'm going to muzzle the anger in my lips. I become utterly speechless. But he brings it to the Lord. In the book of James, or Jacob, his name is actually Jacob. Book of James, Yaakov. Chapter 1, verse 19, James writes this. He says, know this, my dear brothers and sisters. Let every person be quick to listen, slow to speak, and slow to become anger, or slow to wrath. Right? So be aware of these things, he says. Pay attention to what I'm going to say next. Let every person be quick to listen, slow to speak, and slow to anger. And so he's pointing us to what God is like. And the proverb we read in different passages, and let's look at a few passages. Proverbs 29:20 says, "Do you see someone hasty in his words? There's more hope for a fool than for him. Be slow to speak, quick to listen, slow to speak, slow to anger. Quick to listen, slow to speak, slow to anger. Quick to listen, slow to speak, slow to anger." Proverbs 13:3, "He who watches his mouth protects his life, but whoever opens wide his lips comes to ruin." Proverbs 15:1, "A gentle answer turns away wrath, but a harsh word stirs up anger." Matthew 12:36, "But I tell you that on the day of judgment, men will give account for every careless word they speak." So here, James isn't simply giving a proverb that's good advice for living. There's something that he has that's very specific in mind. It has very much to do with, he says, be quick to listen and then slow to speak and slow to become angry. It has to do with the word of truth that by which we have been born anew or brought forth. Back up to the previous verse, verse 18, right? It says, by his will, by God's will, he brought us forth by the word of truth, right? So this brought us forth is an idea of being begotten by the word of truth, so that we might be a kind of first fruits of all he created, right? So we're supposed to be just as Yeshua is the first fruits of the resurrection, that we will all be raised again. We are to be becoming a first fruits of all he created, those who reflect his character, people who are walking in the way we were intended to walk, right? We've been brought forth by the word of truth as a kind of first fruits. So, of all he's created, he says, so, that's verse 18. So pay attention to what I'm saying, he says. Be quick to listen to the word of truth. The word of truth is what we've been brought forth by the word of truth. So be quick to listen, to hear. Be slow to speak and be slow to wrath. And later in the book of James, he deals with the words that come out of our mouths. That we shouldn't have. Can this bitter water and sweet water come out of the same fountain? But it continues in verse 20, it says, because human anger does not produce the righteousness of God. We're to be slow to wrath. Well, God himself is slow to wrath, right? We're to be slow to wrath. And here the phrase, the human anger does not work God's righteousness. It does not produce God's righteousness. So when we're talking about bringing about God's righteousness, God's justice, accomplishing God's justice, setting things right, although it can feel like like David says, when the wickedness was before me, I kept my mouth shut. The desire is to go at it, to attack it with our own lips, to take it upon ourselves, that we be the arbiters of justice. But the wrath of humanity does not bring the work that when I'm working in anger, the human anger does not produce the righteousness of God. It doesn't bring about God's justice. It doesn't reflect the righteous character of God because it's tinged with all the other stuff within my own broken, sinful condition. The reality is, when we see injustice and you begin to boil in anger over it, it would seem as though giving vent to that anger is just and right. Even people will then take it to the point of violence because it can serve to counter the perceived injustice. But God basically says this. He says, what does he say in Deuteronomy 32:35? He says, vengeance is mine and payback. For the time when their foot staggers, surely their day of disaster is near. What is prepared rushes on them. Vengeance is mine, I will repay, says the Lord. We read that, and also it's quoted in Romans. And so, I made the example before. if there's conflict between my children and one child mistreats another, that I don't give my children the right to discipline each other. Bring it to me. Bring it to me, because I'm going to operate because I have love for you both. I'm not clouded by, my judgment's not clouded in this. You're both mine, and I'm going to deal with this. So you don't get to take that upon yourself. Bring it to me. Let me deal. I'll deal with it, and it will be justice, and there'll be mercy, and it'll be done in righteousness because I love you, right? And so that's where the Lord comes to us, and his righteousness, when he brings justice, he does it perfectly. He's so slow to anger, and he's gracious and compassionate, right? Slow to anger, abounding in love and in truth. And all of those things are working in perfection so that every decision he makes is perfectly just and perfectly loving, perfectly wise, in a way that we could not even begin to be. And so when the wickedness is before me, I muzzle my mouth. I'm not going to take this on in my own strength. I'm going to bring it to you. That's what forgiveness is, daily taking the offense and saying, here, Lord, it's yours. But what can happen is it's one thing when you go to muzzle your mouth. The question becomes even what's boiling inside. One of the more famous passages that Yeshua, things that he said is, of course, in the Sermon on the Mount. And he says, you've heard that it was said, an eye for an eye and a tooth for a tooth. But I tell you, don't resist an evildoer. But whoever slaps you on your right cheek, turn to him also the other. And I've talked about this passage before. This is one of those passages that we're like, well, how many times do I got to turn my cheek? Right. And the issue is, the Lord doesn't want us to have retaliation in our heart. It's not simply about the mindlessly going through the turning the other cheek. The issue is the condition of our heart. When we see him, when we observe Yeshua, when he was mistreated, when he was treated violently, he did exactly what he had said to do. He didn't preach one thing and do another. He exemplified the very thing that he preached. And the one wanting to sue you and take your shirt, let him also have your coat. Whoever forces you to go 1 mile, go with him 2. None of that's natural. Give to the one who asks for you, and asks of you. Don't turn away from the one who wants to borrow from you. You've heard that it was said, you shall love your neighbor and hate your enemy. But I tell you, love your enemies and pray for those who persecute you, so that you may be children of your Father in heaven. He causes his sun to rise on the evil and the good, and sends rain on the righteous and the unrighteous. For if you love those who love you, what reward do you have? Even the tax collectors do the same, don't they? And if you greet only your brothers, what more are you doing than anyone else? Even the pagans do that, don't they? Therefore, be perfect, or complete, whole, just as your Father in heaven is perfect, complete, whole. But the aim is to be like him. That's what he's pointing us to, is the character of the Father. And he says, when you've seen me, you've seen the Father. So this isn't just about muzzling my mouth. It's about the condition of my heart. Is there retaliation of my heart? When I see this, am I bringing it to the Lord? Is my heart filled with rage and hatred? Or am I bringing it in my own my own childlikeness? I'm the toddler in the situation, and he's the father. I don't see it all clearly, so I bring it to him, and I want to have a heart like him. What's the condition of my heart? Luke 6:45, Yeshua says, out of the good treasure of his heart, the good man brings forth good. And out of the evil man brings forth evil. For from the overflow of the heart, his mouth speaks. It's if I muzzle my mouth, he says, I was muzzling it, but it began to burn. Eventually, that's going to overflow. Whatever's boiling inside is going to overflow. It's going to spew out. Right? What's overflowing from my lips? It's not just about muzzling my mouth. It's about muzzling. It's about dealing with, Lord, suffocate the fire. Don't give oxygen to the fire of anger in my heart. Lord, let your word wash over it. Let your word wash over it. Let me bring it to you. I bring it all to you. So what did I do? When I opened my lips, I brought it to him. Right? Whatever's coming out of my mouth is the result of what's cooking in my heart. Words matter. My words matter. He says every careless word we're going to have to answer for. And we have to understand it's not the words matter. It's not just the words we say. More important than the words we say, I believe, are the words that are in my heart. That's what's eventually going to boil out. The words I say are simply an overflow of the words I believe in my heart. Right? When words of anger and destruction and you take jabs at someone, when that bubbles out of my lips, it's not coming out of nowhere. Right? There's at least some little compartment somewhere in my heart, where those words have been stored away and simmering and stewing. And there can be the pressure of the moment that squeezes it out. And we say, well, I didn't mean to say that. Normally I would never say that. That's not in character. Perhaps not, but if I'm thinking it and I'm meditating on it, if I'm stuffing it down and just walking away from conflict, murmuring words in my heart of anger and hatred and division and self-righteousness, you can be assured that if the heat gets turned up on the pot, those ingredients will boil over, and they can spill over in an explosion of anger and hurtful words, and they can seep out through some crack of passive-aggressive criticism, that intended to crush behind a smile. Oh, well, yeah. But they reveal what's going on inside of me. So rather than saying, well, I don't know, I didn't mean to say that, the question, I can genuinely apologize. I'm really sorry that I said that. And I want to deal with what's going on, why I said that. I'm going to take it to the Lord. And to say, Lord, search me and know me. And that's why pleasing, may the words of my mouth and the meditation of my heart be pleasing in your sight, O Lord, my strength and my Redeemer. Or like Paul says in 2 Corinthians 10:5, he says, we are taking every thought captive to the obedience of Messiah. It's not just about what I do on the outside. The starting point is what's going on inside. Right? What's going on in the recesses of my heart. Don't just muzzle my lips. Snuff the anger out in my heart. I want to be becoming like you. And so I'm going to keep bringing this stuff before you. Purify me. Amen? Amen. Let me just say, I haven't said hello in a bit, and just say a quick hello to everybody. Hello to Joshua and to Kathleen, and good morning to Kelly Kenfield, and to Kelly and Melody Woods. Hope you guys are doing well. And to Jerry and Janet, and to Dayspring and Rachel. And good morning to Barbara Callahan, and to Elizabeth, and to the Eddies, to Lauren and Mike and David and Levi and Valor and Haven and Everett, and now Felix, and to Pastor and Sister Martinez. And good morning to Eileen and Sonia and Ron and Amy and Margarita and Hattie. Good morning. And to Joyce and Joe, and to Jeannie and Carol. Good morning. And so hope you're all doing well. Thank you guys for your faithfulness as we grow together every day in the Word, as we continue to say, Lord, search me and know me. I want to please you today. I want to make you smile today. Amen? All right. Well, may the Lord bless you and keep you. May the Lord make his face to shine upon you and be gracious unto you. May the Lord lift up his countenance upon you and give you peace. Shalom, shalom. Have a beautiful day.